case with Oliver Farry. Hello once again. Let's start off with yet another Ebola case, getting people all over the world worried.
That's right. In another case in Dallas, where a nurse who had been treating the late victim, Thomas Eric Duncan, contracted the disease, The Guardian reports that health officials in the USA are deeply concerned by a breach in protocol, as they call it, which resulted in the nurse getting the disease. That's the first case of Ebola transmission in the US and only the second outside of Africa.
Very similar to what happened in Spain, in fact,
absolutely.
A nurse who'd been treating an Ebola patient.
And like the nurse in Spain, she had been wearing protective clothing, but may have contracted the disease while removing it. Now, Dr. Tom Frieden, the director of the Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, says that other breaches among staff may have happened, and he warns that there could be more cases to come. And he says training needs to be enhanced. The New York Times went to visit the neighbours of the stricken nurse. Her apartment building was being cleaned Sunday by hazardous materials crews. One neighbour, Caroline Guerrero, says that she was woken at 5 a.m. by police to warn her that there had been a case in the area. She says she's not worried, but Ebola does seem closer to home now. Another woman is worried that the woman might have been using the same gym as her in the neighbourhood. Probably not the case if the woman was coming down with serious flu-like symptoms.
But there are those 21 days when you can have Ebola and not be showing symptoms.
That's correct, yeah. But medical workers are more calm. One, a dietitian from another hospital, says she admires the nurse. She stepped up to the plate to take care of the patient. Everyone else wants to run away.
That's it. A lot of these people volunteering to help, aren't they?
Right.
Well, let's look at what's happening in Africa. Liberia, we've been talking about this morning with our correspondent, Catherine Vitozzi. One of the countries that's been hit hardest, of course, by Ebola. The army leading the fight against the disease there.
That's right, and it's benefiting from a slightly more positive image than it used to. The New York Times interviews Joseph F. Johnson, a Deputy Defence Minister, who says that we're trying to rebrand the Liberian Liberation Forces as a force for good, or sorry, Liberian armed forces. Sorry. For decades, Liberians have referred to the armed forces as, quote, soldiers them, usually involving a case of human rights abuses. But now the army has a more benign role, building Ebola treatment units. This is a big change from its involvement in massacres, mass rapes and military coups in the past. The move comes as a result of President Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, who said that she promised a kinder army. Recruits are now vetted, but complaints remain. One Liberian, Beatrice K. Yates, said soldiers beat her son last month for standing on his porch, supposedly a violation of Liberia's Ebola curfew.
Right, worrying reports there. Well, let's move on with another story now. Events in Hong Kong, quite fast moving. We've heard that news this morning that some demonstrators have clashed with the protesters who've been on the streets for 2 weeks. But the students, it seems in the papers, they're saying they're still as determined as ever. That's
right. The demonstrations got new life on Friday after the government called off talks with protesters. More people took to the streets. The government standing firm. The South China Morning Post, Hong Kong's main English language newspaper, reports that Chief Executive C.Y. Leung says the Occupy students have almost zero chance of success. He also says it was the police's decision alone to use tear gas on protesters on the 28th of September, though he does claim credit for getting them to stop. The Hong Kong Federation of Students calls on Leung to resign, saying it's absolutely natural and reasonable for him to do so. Now, one of the best-known student leaders is Joshua Wong, founder of the Scholars and Protest Group. He's already a 3-year veteran of protests, and from today he could finally legally go for a drink because he's, among other things, because he turns 18. The South China Morning Post says that Wong posted 3 birthday wishes on his Facebook page just before midnight. These are that the protests remain peaceful, that demonstrators maintain the fight, and Beijing revokes its strict electoral reform package. The post got more than 16,000 likes, which is probably more than either you and I can expect to get for anything we post on Facebook.
Just a couple more from what I get.
Yes, false modesty, I think.
What about the pro-Beijing press, though?
They're not impressed by any of this. The Hong Kong edition of China Daily carries an opinion piece by Harry Ong, who says the students have let themselves be misled by foreign meddling. Now, in a piece that's heavy on speculation and light on fact, Ong says the youth of Hong Kong must never again allow themselves to become the pawns of international schemers and their local lackeys.
Okay, very interesting. We'll be watching all the developments out of Hong Kong, of course, but for now, thanks very much, Oliver Farry, with that look through the international press for you. We're going to take a short break. More news coming up in a few minutes. And in our special focus report, we're taking you to eastern Ukraine, where winter is being ushered in amid continued violence, this despite a supposed ceasefire.
Reporters.
Following the terrible 2010 earthquake, a cholera epidemic ravaged Haiti. 700,000 people were infected, 8,500 died. UN peacekeepers are said to have brought cholera to Haiti. So far, the UN has rejected demands for compensation. It pledges to raise $2 billion to fight the epidemic. However, thousands of victims have filed a class action suit. From Haiti to New York, our reporters are investigating this scandal that's rocked the United Nations.
Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.